Do you know what psychiatry is?
Generally, yes.
Yes, I do.
Not exactly. No.
Yes.
Isn't it like when you don't get your PhD in psychology and you're just like a psychiatrist, but if you get it, you're a psychologist? I read that somewhere. I think it's like that. No?
According to psychiatry.org, psychiatry is a branch of medicine focused on the diagnosis, treatment, and prevention of mental, emotional, and behavioral disorders. A psychiatrist is a medical doctor who specializes in mental health, including substance use disorders. Psychiatrists are qualified to assess both the mental and physical aspects of psychological problems. People see psychiatrists for a number of reasons, the most common being depression, generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder, and post-traumatic stress disorder. Often referred to as the black sheep of medicine, psychiatry has a checkered past. Throughout the years, debatable methods have been used, and some of the once prominent ideas and names in psychiatry have been discredited by subsequent research. Modern-day methods are almost unrecognizable in comparison to their predecessors, yet the similarity remains in their search for understanding of madness. From its root to modern day, psychiatry has progressed from a collection of guesswork to a medicine closer to a science. People suffering from mental illness are encouraged to seek help from a psychiatrist as well as a psychologist.
Hi, how are you?
I'm okay.
What brings you in today?
I've just been feeling really nervous, and I've been scared a lot, and it's hard to focus. Sometimes I feel like people are watching me.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
So, I think this is a typical case of neurosis. And I think we need to take you to the asylum right now.
Electroconvulsive therapy, developed in 1938, is one of the most misunderstood psychiatric procedures. Portrayed in film as barbaric and torturous, it is actually humane and extremely effective when done right. It has been miraculous, as described by psychiatrists, to see just how effective this treatment is on their patients with severe mental disorders. The reason psychiatric disorders have consistently been so hard to treat is that they are quite literally in someone's head. This does not mean that they do not exist. It just means that symptoms are primarily those which cannot be accurately measured. It is for that reason that the mentally ill have been locked up throughout history, seen as deviants of their own accord. Lobotomies are a procedure in which a section of the frontal lobe is removed from one's brain. It is an invasive procedure, the results of which are a docile patient who no longer has much of a personality. Once it was discovered that these were the results of the procedure, it was conducted in mass numbers as a way to control those in the asylums. Patients who were particularly rowdy or caused trouble for the nurses would undergo this procedure as a way for the hospital to be less chaotic. Lobotomies for psychiatric reasons are no longer performed in America today. Tennessee Williams wrote on his sister Rose's lobotomy, "Rose, her head cut open, a knife thrust in her brain. Me, here, smoking. My father, mean as a devil, snoring, 1,000 miles away." Lobotomies were near devastating to people close to the patient, as they were essentially being stripped of their essence. If one were to walk into an asylum in the 19th century, even in the earliest 20th, they'd be hit by the smell, the gloom, the chaos. Asylums were dedicated to keeping the patients out of society, and treatments were all highly experimental and typically dangerous. These treatments are part of why psychiatry has accumulated such a bad reputation.
I think this is a case of anxiety neurosis.
What do you think for treatment?
Orgones, we need to amplify your orgones.
Dr. Wilhelm Reich developed a treatment he called orgone therapy. It involved putting the patients in a box as a means to align the forces in him. Reich claimed that the function of the orgasm is to discharge energy particles called orgones, thus maintaining a balance of vital forces. According to Reich, this approach led to dramatic therapeutic results, according to the Scientific Review of Mental Health Practice. Orgone therapy is still used today, and it is highly debated whether or not it is an effective treatment. Oh, and did I mention? The man who created this treatment was thrown in jail for fraudulent treatment. He was devastated because he thought orgone therapy was real, but he still died in jail. For years, there was no unified way to diagnose patients. Psychiatrists could ultimately make up a new diagnosis for each patient, or categorize every patient as having different versions of the same disorder. Without clear categories of disorders, there could be no definitive or organized treatments. This chaos is what led to the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. The first DSM was not based on research. It was still very loose, and all disorders were listed as neurosis. The first DSM to be based on research was DSM-3, and it was revolutionary. Finally, psychiatrists had a united collection of symptoms, which allowed them to target treatment based on the patient's diagnosis, which was now the same throughout all psychiatric
case of generalized
practices.
anxiety disorder. I would recommend medication such as Xanax for this.
Today, treatment for mental illness includes medication, and it also includes talk therapy. Patients are still sent to hospitals when they cannot be treated at home, though the conditions of hospitals are much safer now. How have you seen psychiatry change?
I've definitely seen a change in the way people view psychiatry. I feel like parents are more open to the idea of putting their kids on medication. Just the idea, not necessarily following through on it, but they're also hearing it, I think, from different people, so that sort of helps. I mean, there's more data in terms of like how it works for kids. And I also feel like the pediatricians are also discussing it with families, which I feel like makes the whole idea of medication for children a little more acceptable. But I definitely see that it's still primarily for really excessive cases in terms of the younger ages. But in terms of high schoolers, I definitely feel like it's more acceptable now to be on any medication.
How have you seen psychiatry affect the students you work with?
Yes, we definitely have seen a big increase in students that we sent out for mental health issues, and just going to see a good psychiatrist and therapist definitely helps the students. They're able to cope better with whatever pressures are bothering them. We don't deal with the psychiatrist as much as the therapist, but we do touch base with the therapy and see what the student needs to help them get through the day, any kind of coping techniques. We speak to them about, they come here, they have time out. I think the whole family process that students need, and the family needs to get together with the therapist and the psychiatrist for that kind of counseling. But it's definitely helped a lot of students.